collector road. So Lewis and Clark County, yes, they pay a proportionate share of county road improvements, and this is included in their subdivision regulations. This is a part of their subdivision regulations that they pay their proportionate share of county road improvements. In Gallatin County, they have an engineer on staff who looks at these on a case-by-case basis. And in speaking with that planner, she said there's obviously some negatives to this, because it could be looked at as, you're playing favorites with one developer who has to improve the road and one does not. And so she does say that that does get tricky when it's on a case-by-case basis, as I could imagine, and I would prefer that we did not go that route here, because I wouldn't want to put you in the position and I wouldn't want to be in the position.
So how did Lewis and Clark County address that? Did they do it through resolution or update their subdivision laws? How did they accomplish that? Because I know that they had an issue at one time.
That's a good question. I don't know, but I can look into that further.
Okay.
I do know that it's part of their subdivision regulations.
Right.
But I'm not sure if it was through a resolution or through just updating their regulations blanket.
Yeah.
So I'll look into that.
Save us a lot of reinventing the wheel, right? Reinventing the wheel might help us out there.
Prefer to not, yes. Let me just jot this down.
And before I forget, Lynn, I'm going to bring you on this conversation on what we had Thursday down in bringing the sheriff in on reviewing some of that stuff. So we'll talk about that later.
Perfect, okay.
I didn't want to forget my thought.
I was trying to go back to which part of that conversation.
Yeah.
Because I got some info on the other part of that conversation.
Perfect.
So,
Jefferson County, they have never required this. Madison County, this is in their subdivision regulations, and again, I don't know how that came to be in their subdivision regulations, but I printed it out and I left it upstairs, but so this is the summarization. A developer may be required to pay the total cost of upgrading a county road, so not a proportionate share, the total cost of upgrading a county road, which I think could be dangerous as well.
That's why Lewis and Clark got sued.
Right, because you cannot put the entire burden on one developer. They do have in there that there's a 10-year payback. So essentially, if another developer comes in, they have to pay the proportionate share back to this developer, but that's a 10-year time period, 10-year payback period, if you will. We did do paybacks on Wheatland Road and Price Road in the south end of the county, and from my point of view, that seemed to work well. I don't know how that worked for the developers. They never actually pointed back to us, but I was working with a finance officer at the time, clerk and recorder's office, and then obviously the planning office, and it seemed to work well. But I do not agree with putting the entire burden on the developer to bring it up to county road standards. And I should back up a little. I reached out to Jefferson County, Lewis and Clark County, Gallatin County, and Madison County. Those are the 4 counties I reached out to. All right, so timeline on sale of family transfer.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry. For our region, great. I think that's perfect. But I do think there are some others that could be quite parallel to us. Ravalli County went through a big developmental boom a couple years ago. They might be one to ask this question of. And Beaverhead County seems to be very parallel to us in a lot of what we're going through, they go through. For some reason, we seem to be twins.
Okay.
So if you would add those two to your list and just ask them.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
So would you prefer to discuss this now or move on to the next topic and then discuss it then?
Maybe move on and
yeah.
then discuss it because some will overlap.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the second question, should we implement a timeline on the sale of family transfer parcels? So essentially right now in Broadwater County, you can do a family transfer if you are legally eligible, which there's a whole set of requirements that follows, that the surveyor would have to follow before it would ever come to your table. So you can file a family transfer gifting to a parent, spouse, or child, and immediately afterwards, that receiver of that land can come in and sell that to another person. And so that's where this came about, is are these people evading subdivision? I kind of go back and forth on this. Say I'm going to use myself as an example. If I were eligible to gift property to my child, who's a senior in high school, going to be attending college, and she wants to sell that to pay for her college tuition, I don't see a problem with that, and I'm not just saying that with myself, I'm just using that as an example. However, we do kind of run into a scenario, and I know we have in the past, where an owner of property would gift to, their 5 children and their spouse, and then they would turn around and gift property back to the receiver, and then they would sell. So you end up with these large subdivision-looking areas that never had to go through any review for, the neighbors were not able to comment on it. There's no provisions for road, which that is at the legislature right now, that access will be looked at on family transfers, but for us right now, there's nothing. They could put a 2-track into a lot, sell it, and that's what we have, which is very dangerous for emergency services as well as access to the development. So anyway, that's why this came up.
Yeah, and don't they avoid the DEQ?
No, if it's less than 20 acres, they still have to go through DEQ.
Right. If they decide to develop it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Okay, so with Gallatin County, when I spoke with the planner there, they do not have an official document per se that says they have to wait a certain number of years or months, whichever, but they do require the landowner to come in and physically raise their right hand and testify under oath in front of God and everyone that they will not sell, bless you, that they will not sell this property for 2 years. She said they've never run into it where someone has actually left the commission meeting and gone upstairs and recorded that. However, there's no real way to track that. But she says it really kind of puts the fear in them that you're raising your right hand that you will not sell or transfer this property. So that's how they do it. No official document, but they do make them swear under oath in a public meeting.
Interesting.
Lewis and Clark County, I was not able to get an answer from them on that one. Jefferson County. They require a 1-year wait period, if you will, and this is included in their exemption criteria of the subdivision regulations. So this is a part of their subdivision regulations, so it's not necessarily a document that the owner signs, it's just part of their regulations. In Madison County, they require a waiting period of 180 days. And this is included in their subdivision regulations also. So I do feel that this is something that Broadwater County should pursue. And the planning board is actually meeting tomorrow, and I anticipate having this just under items for discussion, just to see how the planning board feels about this. I know we've spoken previously about needing to update our subdivision regulations, and so I feel like this could be something that we build in, obviously with more research, but we could build in to our updates to our subdivision regulations.
Mr. Chairman, Tim Ravendall. I would just like to maybe just make a mention that right now in the legislature, there's a bill, I'm sorry I don't have the number on the top of my head, but there's a bill that deals with family transfers, and one of the aspects of that is the access defined in legal and or so I didn't know if you guys had been.
I think Nicole just
We
said
just
that
spoke
very
about it.
thing,
Did I
didn't
just
you, about
miss
10
that? I
seconds ago?
apologize.
Thank you for proving me right, though. Third item, if you'd like me to move on. Shared driveways when planning a subdivision. So this has been something that has been, I know it's been difficult for the sheriff's office. It's been difficult in planning. Basically, the way we have it written into our county subdivision regulations is that a driveway can serve no more than 2 homes. Which, in theory, seems like a good idea. However, it can cause some neighborly or not so neighborly disputes when you have a shared driveway. You know, whose job is it to maintain it? Say neighbor number 1 has the equipment and is willing to upgrade the road, but feels like neighbor number 2 should probably participate financially. Neighbor number 2 has no requirement to do so.
Yeah, well, neighbor number 1 didn't plow the road the way neighbor number 2 wanted it plowed.
Just don't do it.
Yes.
It's so difficult because I know that you have several, case scenarios that neighbors are arguing that this is my driveway, this is my driveway, this is my road, this is, it can be very difficult. From a GIS perspective, translating into 911, what I try and do is give the numbers a one-off. So all addresses on the right side of the road are even, addresses on the left are odd. So say you have a shared driveway, and you're, depending on the mile marker and the mileage down the road, but let's just say number 2 and number 4. That does leave some guesswork up to emergency services of which one is number 2 and which one is number 4. The onus has to fall back on the homeowner. You have to be responsible, and I do my best to tell people this, but of course, heart attacks or accidents are happening at 2, 3, and 4 in the morning in the dark of night, and emergency services have to use their best guess on, is it number 2 having a heart attack or number 4?
Yeah.
So from an emergency purpose standpoint, or emergency services standpoint, I feel like shared driveways could be dangerous.
It brings up a point or a comment that I've heard, and it actually is with our Amish community that's growing out there so fast, The mailbox is on the road, but the actual home is way off the road on a shared driveway. And there's a lot of concern that for when our emergency folks do have to go out there, they're going to be able to find the right place.
Absolutely.
So,
And in that situation, those folks aren't necessarily owning separate parcels of property, so they have one large piece with homes on it, which is legal, but then it's very difficult to decipher which address belongs to which home.
and the other issue that a lot of times we don't think about is their communication is way different than ours. I mean, they have a cell phone a lot of times just to make a phone call, and that's pretty much it. So, as far as them maintaining contact with dispatch and different things like that, it might not be something that happens. And their only access maybe out to a roadway is on horseback or in a buggy or something like that. So I'm seeing some potential there.
Yeah,
For
for
the future.
problems. Definitely. So Gallatin County, the way they address this, a developer, so when they're putting in a subdivision, which that wouldn't necessarily apply to the Amish situation because they're not subdividing, but shared driveways could translate into how I do addressing in the county. It could further on down to this level, but so in Gallatin County, the developer must dedicate the driveway to the public. So it must be a 60-foot easement dedicated to the public. So they don't necessarily have to build it to county road standards, but it's a 60-foot easement driveway dedicated to the public.
So could that potentially solve our Valley Drive issue? That it's, where they wanted to create an RID where it has to be
Dedicated to the public.
dedicated public road.
Yeah, absolutely. Jefferson County, they have no regulation or restriction on the number of lots utilizing a driveway. So they're a little worse off than what we are, in that we will not allow more than 2 lots to be utilized by the same driveway. Let's see, in Madison County, they are similar to us, no more than 2 lots. Lewis and Clark County, I was not able to get an answer. The first person I got on the phone was able to answer a couple of the questions, but not all of them, and then I got voicemail for the other one, so that's why there's gaps in there.
What was your language on that? Driveways need to be dedicated?
Dedicated to the public. A
Dedicated.
60-foot wide easement dedicated to the public. So very similar to what we do for a subdivision road, other than they are not required to engineer and construct it to county subdivision road standards.
Okay.
And then I didn't print off the agenda, but I believe the 4th item on there is evasion
Creation of
of
subdivision.
subdivision. Okay, which I think, I'm not certain, but were you indicating that that would fall in line with the family transfers? That's how I read that. I'm sorry.
Wasn't that, or that was a reason for denying a family transfer, was it not?
Potentially, it could be. You can call evasion on any COS that crosses your table.
And we have
And
the
you have.
legal right to do that, as is now.
Yep. Yeah, nothing needs to change.
So part of my question is, we're going forward with our new growth policy, are these some of the things that we can address with that?
We can. The problem with the growth policy is that it's not regulation.
Right.
It's a recommending document, and so it's very difficult to. You can outline it in the growth policy plan on what you prefer.
So I guess maybe where I'm going with that is that the recommendation could be to update our subdivision regulations to whatever we decide, from, you see what I'm saying?
Mhm, yeah,
Because they're
absolutely.
gonna be making recommendations for
Mhm.
different things.
Mhm.
Right, okay. All right.
Something Tara Depew had said at the Mako training is that it is a good idea to have some language in your regulations regarding what it is you would stop a COS and declare it's an evasion of subdivision.
Sure.
So it might not be a bad idea for us to have, may include but not limited to these reasons, since we're updating them anyway.
Mhm.
And I know that other counties do have. Essentially, it's called evasion criteria.
Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
I think that's what she had probably
Okay.
called it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then moving on to the last item, Valley Drive. So I did not do any more work on this because per our March 4th meeting, and input by Mako Land Use Attorney Tara Depew, the commission can request a dedicated 60-foot easement for property owners along Valley Drive, or the landowners can petition for it to become a county road in order for it to be an RID. But it has to be dedicated to the public, and the only way for a road to be dedicated to the public is for them to actually give that to the county, dedicated 60-foot easement, or if they petition for it to become a county road.
So, for me, please, what does that mean? So, right now, do we understand that it's a public road, and can we as a commission say that it is a public road and move forward with an RID, or do we need to send Gary back to the homeowners one by one to sign a petition to have it become to petition for it to be a county road?
Option 2.
Okay,
Because I did ask that question. It was a follow-up question. Can the commissioners declare it a public road? No. Those are your two options. The landowners can petition for it to become a county road, or they can dedicate a 60-foot easement to the public. But the commissioners can simply not look at it, and I don't want to say make some assumptions, but essentially looking at the plat and say, well, it is public. No, it has to be actually dedicated to the public through one of those two ways.
So my question there becomes, is the commission, say that process happened, the commission says, yeah, it's gonna be a county road. Now, in theory, we're gonna actually go back and take that 60-foot easement.
It could be viewed as a takings.
See what I'm saying?
Mhm. Unless they petitioned, and that's why there's the petition process.
But usually in those petitions, it's not 100% petition, right?
You don't have to have a 100% participation.
That's what I'm saying. So you're gonna be the people that hold out, which most likely will be the folks that are gonna lose their property, that are gonna say, you just took my land anyway.
Because there is actually a 60-foot easement there. It would just be a matter of those folks dedicating that 60-foot easement to the county.
Sure.
and that's a petition process as well.
Correct.
Okay, so what we need to do is let Gary know what the two options are
Mhm.
and what he needs to do so that we can move forward with at least addressing what those citizens have pretty overwhelmingly agreed that they want, and that's the RID.
Correct.
Okay.
And would you like me to write that letter?
Please.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So I believe I captured all of those items.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, please let me know, or if you have questions, let me know.
All right, so one thing we're gonna talk about with Wynn here, stems from the meeting we had down in Southland County last Thursday, and we made some great progress there and moving forward and providing some services for those folks down there. One thing that came out of the meeting is that the Gallatin County Sheriff is involved in the review process of the subdivisions. And so I'll just go ahead and turn it over to Win and he can explain how that works.
And so, well, yeah, and so I didn't know that that's what he did, but like Bernadette, when you have a subdivision, she'll usually send me something. But one of the things, she's the only one that doesn't. So during that discussion, with Sheriff Gookin and the other 20 people in the room, was that every subdivision goes through, but make sure that there's not an issue. And, because right now, that's the thing, is that if Bernadette, somebody else does it, not Bernadette, I don't know anything about it. So we don't know what that impact's gonna be. You know, if somebody came in and said, hey, this is what it is, it's just one of those things that they put it in there that they get that public safety component in there before it goes to the commission for.
Because weed signs off, fire signs off, and so
Yeah.
it makes sense that the sheriff should be signing off as well.
And they do. So let me tell you, Bernadette has been the only one to submit a subdivision for about 5 years. We have not had any other developers come forward. So that is one of the items that I do when I sit down. I've had one other developer that I had a pre-application meeting with, never came back with a final application. But they must contact the fire department, the sheriff, the school, ambulance, usually, Mary, and so I have all of that contact information, so that is a requirement, that's absolutely a requirement. The only thing is that I don't require a response from the sheriff, which we can build in there. And the reason that we didn't have that previously, not you, sheriffs before you wouldn't respond. And so it was literally holding up the process because I couldn't move it forward until the sheriff responded, saying that they were okay or not okay with the development. But I can absolutely build that back in, that the sheriff's response must be received before they move forward.
And I normally when she says that, I mean, she's
you
emailed
respond
it to me,
right
or she's, I get it in the mail either way, and I'm usually right on it, but I understand the urgency to get those things done too, but the same breath is when we're looking at, and I think this is where some of this has really come into play, is that, and this goes back to 2003 when Roland Glenn's came in, and most people sitting at this table weren't here for that, is.
All people.
Well.
You weren't here for Wellington? I was here for
No,
Wellington.
you were
Okay.
here. Oh, okay, all right.
But,
Yeah, no, I wasn't.
You know, I don't think that anybody really looked at what was gonna happen, and I think that's where it's part of the major frustration with this, is that when Kavanaugh went bankrupt, defunct, whatever they did, we didn't stop the process. We didn't pull that plat. We didn't say, oh, this is no longer in existence. None of these things, the objectives that were set forth, were met, we're gonna yank it. And so what we end up having is hundreds of vacant lots that went back to banks or wherever and were sold to other investments. And now we have this monstrosity down there that we don't have solid roads. I mean, you go in every one of the subdivisions, the roads are different. You know, there's water sources, everything else. And so basically we left a project that had all these infrastructure components in place. We left it in place without really any guarantees any of that stuff is going to get done. And now we're looking at it, and I mean, the commission hears about the roads, they hear about, you know, the flooding in the spring. I mean, it's nonstop. It's a nonstop situation. But you know, I don't think anybody ever stopped back then when all that started and said, maybe we need to do this. And so now we're really trying to face an impact. You know, the conversations we've had in Three Forks has been. You know, we're making progress, but none of them are shedding a shining light on things, and it's gotten away from us, and it's like a wildfire going across the prairie. It's hard to get in front of it once it gets going, and that's kind of where we're at right now, trying to figure out what we're going to do. So, you know, like I said, the only person I ever see is Bernadette, you know, but Lord knows what that debacle down there is going to turn into. So. So if I could, I mean, you know, just, I'm usually pretty spontaneous with that stuff.
Yes, yeah, you have been very good about responding, and but I just wanted to make it very clear that's a requirement that they reach out.
It
And
would be hard to put in regs that not getting a response could stop the process, though, because that puts the county in legal jeopardy. So I think, thank you for responding. I agree with Nicole, it's not always been the case, but I don't think we can change the regs to say there must be a response unless there's a time frame. If no response is received within 2 weeks, then we move forward. Because again, the county's put in jeopardy and the taxpayers
I don't even think it
can't
needs to
shoulder
be.
that.
I would foresee that not more than 7 days. I mean, as a sheriff, I have a responsibility to get on these things and get them taken care of. So, and I would expect whoever in the future decides that they want the painful experience of being the sheriff of Broadwater County, that they're gonna have to understand they're gonna have to get things done quickly too,
Well, I
so.
think it's important because a lot of times when, looking through his eyes may see something that we might miss.
Well, and it does go to him now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Bernadette, but
Yeah.
other developers know.
But we haven't had any others
Yeah,
for
but-
years.
but
But
it's
it's
coming.
in the
Yeah.
regulations
But it's coming.
already,
It's
so
coming,
another
so.
developer has to,
Okay,
even though we haven't had any. So it's not just Bernadette doing it because she's really professional.
mhm,
Any subdivision,
okay. good.
subdivider has to because it's
They
in the
have to,
regs.
they have to provide proof, and that's actually part of my checklist, they have to provide proof that they at least sent a letter and reached out to ambulance, school, sheriff.
Good.
So I have to have proof that they sent it, whether they do or not, I guess I can't say for certain, and I will do my best, if other developers come in too, and I don't ever see, and not that I never see a response, I'm saying if I don't see a response from you, I can circle back around, we're in the same building, and say, hey, did they actually send you this letter?
Well, I think I actually have been starting to, because I usually email her back, so I think I include you too.
Right.
So everybody's. on the
Right,
same
to where if I
page.
see one's missing, I can take that on as a personal responsibility to double check with the sheriff and make sure he did actually receive it.
Perfect.
And from us, that's one of our 7 questions we should be asking with every single subdivision.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's right there in the statute.
Yeah.
The statute gives us the questions.
We should
It's our
develop
job
we should
to,
develop a little template to make it easier for us.
right, yeah,
Just, I'll look at it and get them questions answered.
absolutely,
That's a great idea.
yeah. And we don't get any legal books for free except for land use. And we get one every time the legislature's done with all the updates,
Every session.
every session, yes.
Yeah,
And a follow-up to our conversation earlier about working with Gallatin County as far as planning for emergency
Yep.
services down there. I did, when I was on the phone with the planner at Gallatin County this morning.
Good.
We're gonna move towards that. They are in the process of picking a consultant to do their growth policy plan. Obviously, we have ours. I think that's the perfect time to bring everybody in and work together on this.
okay, that was something that came out of our meeting
Yeah.
as well, so.
Well, if this, just to enlighten, I did get the attorney out of Gallatin sent me the interlocal agreement for,
And I haven't briefed the commission on our meeting yet, so I guess this is a good time to do that.
if I
So-
can, I'll just jump in there.
Yep.
One of the conversation points that Daryl asked me to do is check with Gallatin County Sheriff Dugan if we were able to, this new hire, if we can get them down in that Three Forks area, if they would lease us a space in the Gallatin County substation. There, it's on Main Street in Three Forks. And so, between the mayor and the sheriff and all the powers that be, they said absolutely. They constructed an interlocal agreement, and it's not gonna cost us anything. They just love to have us there, and so we'll have an office space. That, so our objective with this deputy, and we're understanding the dynamics of what's going on in the Three Forks areas, this person's not gonna be on the schedule for anything north of 101 probably, maybe as far as Tosta. Otherwise, their designated area of work is going to be the Three Forks Junction area, and you're gonna spend your 40 hours there. The goal, the objective is actually have somebody who lives in the area, so they're always there, but their work time will be spent in that, not as part of the collective agreement of officers up here, unless there was something that was major, such as a shooting or something like that. Otherwise, they're gonna be confined to that station, substation itself. So, but this good news, I talked to the mayor on Friday, he said it'd be a couple weeks, and it's Monday, and she's already got it to me. So, that ball's moving forward nicely, so.
Yeah, that's exciting. The other thing that came out of that meeting was, the question we asked is, if the fire and EMS, want to have a more centralized facility up there in the Wheatland area to better serve those folks, and they all agreed that they do. So going forward with the talks we're having with, Bridger Brewery folks, or suggested that they're willing to donate that property to us to put fire, EMS, and law enforcement facility there, as well as our public works. So it's gonna be up to us now to go out and with grants and different things to try to help facilitate that.
Fantastic.
So I'm excited about that as well.
They're long meetings, but I think
It was a productive meeting.
they are productive, and the problem is the education component of having those, is that they don't understand. You know, you might be looking at a potato and the other one I call it potato, you know, but the differences are what we're facing. And so, they get a little long, but they've been good, so.
Thanks for going down there, Wayne. Right away. It was good.
It wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Not like Brandon's, he was down there for 2 hours getting his backside shoot.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I went down and they were really nice to me. They were nice to Brandon, so, yeah.
Did you have anything else for me on any of these topics?
Thank you.
No, I think we're on a good track with the, proportionate share of county roads. I think that I think we wanna maybe do what we're talking about, and that's the 1/50th share, like we have been doing. I think we need to talk about a timeline with the family transfer, something not out of line, but we just wanna make sure that if we do have to evade, or to say that we think somebody's evading, that we have some kind of foundation with that, so maybe the criteria. Shared driveways. I like Gallatin, dedicating it to the public right away. So that's where I'm at on those. And I'm sorry about Valley Drive.
Yeah, me
I
too.
hate to go back to
Me
Gary
too.
and say, you gotta do this step. Those subdivisions were done so long ago, and there just were not nearly the parameters
That we have today.
set.
Mhm.
And,
But it sounds like we may have an opportunity to address that going forward by requiring, this was Galvin County requires it, how did I write that down? That,
Dedication.
they require a dedicated
Mm.
to public 60-foot
Mhm.
so that it is public, and then if an ROD wants to be created after that or whatever, then it can be done.
Right.
So I think keep that in mind.
Yep. And the Valley Drive situation would never happen with today's regulations,
But-
because if you are going to have a road accessing a subdivision, it absolutely must be dedicated to the public.
yeah,
Those were different times. So.
yeah. Live and learn.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks, that's all.
You're welcome. Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Let us know when we can put Valley Drive back on the agenda. I know Gary's chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, not for me.
The only other thing, we had a request from Carla Arneson to be on the agenda for the 25th.
Yeah, yeah, she called unfortunately after this was already done. I think it was Thursday.
Well, I did have one thing I wanted to mention, and Tim, this is something that you can maybe publish for some of your readers. We had a fellow by the name of Mike Kuzman that stopped in, and they're with a Bozeman-based volunteer group called Volunteers of America, and their objective is to assist veterans with a variety of needs, whatever they might be, and also to assist them with housing if they have a housing issue. So this is their service area, and they're willing to help. So if you know of anybody that is a veteran and they need some type of assistance, these folks are there to help them. And I can give you that information.
Okay, so I guess we'll recess till 1:30 for our closed door with Corey.
Are we gonna meet upstairs? Or do you want to come back out there?
I think we could probably do it upstairs now.
Except when we do meet upstairs, we have to kick Mike out. So
Oh,
maybe,
yeah.
Since
Yeah,
it's a
okay.
Monday
Alright,
down here,
we're
would be
open now.
better.
All right, we'll come back down here.
Okay,
That's good.
in a pinch it works,
Yeah.
yeah.
Seems like we're always in a pinch.
Yeah.
Thanks, Win. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
I was actually fearing, I was trying to figure out how many people we could fit in here, because I figured there'd be quite a few, but that wasn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah. Had a lot of phone calls, and so brought stuff forward that way, right?
So, there you go. Deal with some issues that when you're chasing people down the intersection or down
Think
that
if there's
road,
anything that we
then
need
I
to describe.
they had a pursuit this weekend.
Oh, yes, and these are,
Our,
okay, great.
our guys were second in the chase, so I have trolls in the front, but they rolled the car. Not a patrol car, but the suspect rolled the car, no one bothered to tell me about it, and that's